All right, we'll go ahead and get started, guys. Today's group lesson is going to be on support and resistance. I know we've talked about it a little bit before, and generally speaking, support and resistance are what they are, but I want to dive into a little bit deeper, just kind of what they are and what they mean, and then we'll look at some
MDB.
examples live in our
BIBI.
charts. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to
BOIL.
raise your hand, type in the chat, or you can send me a DM if you don't feel comfortable, which is fine. So, just going to talk a little bit about quickly what support and resistance are. So support and resistance they're important concepts in the stock market that help traders basically understand the price movement of the stock. So a support level refers to a level that the price tends to find support as it falls. So if we're talking about support, we're probably talking about the stock moving to the downside. This means that the stock's more likely to bounce back up from this level rather than breaking through it and continuing to fall. Obviously, if it did that, it broke support and continued down. So this is because typically more buyers than
BIBI.
sellers are at that level. That's going to decide whether it bounces or falls through that support, which means that there's more demand for the stock, hopefully, meaning buyers coming in and upward pressure being put on that stock because the support level is right there. And then resistance is obviously the opposite. So resistance is a level where the price of the stock tends to find resistance as it rises. So we're usually talking about a stock moving to the upside if we're talking about resistance. And that means that the stock is more likely to encounter selling pressure. And that's going to cause it to struggle to break through that level rather than continue to rise. So, and that's because, again, typically more sellers than buyers are at that level, which means that there's more supply of the stock and more downward pressure at that price. So again, support, we're probably talking about a stock moving to the downside. Resistance, we're talking about a stock moving to the upside. So if your stock's moving to the downside and it hits support, we're looking for a bounce there. And if it's moving to the upside and it starts to hit resistance, we're probably looking for a move to the downside. So support and resistance levels can be identified by looking at the chart, usually in the past a little bit, whether it's a day or a week or a year. The further you zoom out, the more support and resistance levels you're probably going to find. It just depends on the time frame you're trading. So looking at the historical price action of the stock. So like let's say a stock has consistently found support at this certain price level in the past. So again, whether it's the last few days, the last few weeks, we can probably consider that a level of support, and we can draw that on our charts and have that knowledge moving forward. So and then again, if a stock constantly struggles to break through a certain price point in the past, then we can probably level that as a area of resistance for the stock. So traders and investors use support and resistance levels to make their decisions, whether they're going to long or short a stock. So if a stock's approaching a level of support, we might consider buying that stock in hopes that it's going to bounce from that level. That's, buying the dip. You'll hear a lot.
MDB.
And then vice versa, if the stock is approaching a level of resistance, we might consider selling the stock, whether we're already in it, taking profits, or shorting the stock in hopes that other people are also doing that. Profit taking is occurring, around retail traders, and then the stock encounters selling pressure and struggles to break through that level. So, just generally speaking, try to understand support and resistance levels are just that. They're levels that the stock struggles to either break through or fall through, again, whether you're longing or shorting. And we, as traders and investors, throughout the stock market, use that information to help us decide whether we want to buy or short a stock. So I'm going to look at a couple examples. I'm just going to pull up QQQ on my chart.
BYND.
Pull it up here.
You.
So as always, I have the 5 minute, the 1 minute, and the 6 month chart. These are the charts that we generally use. These are the charts I've found that I like to use. So let's go look at yesterday in QQQ, which is basically the market. It's just an ETF. So we can see that as the stock kind of traded, I'm going to look at the 5 minute. There was, wow, there's a lot of volume in the first hour or so of market opening yesterday. So it was really, really choppy. We had big moves to the upside, big moves to the downside. But in those moves, we can kind of see some areas of support and resistance. So if we're looking at, let's say, for easy math, let's say 279.25 on QQQ. we're looking at on the 5-minute chart, you can see that 1, 2, 3, 4,
CVNA.
5, basically 6 times, whether it was the body or the wick, that QQQ bounced off of that. Or, there's obviously a wick there that kind of went through it, but then was quickly bought up. So on this day, we could say that 279.25, again for easy math, was a support for this stock. And as you can see, the rest of the day, it never did, even touch it or break through that. So that was a good support level. If you were trading that, again, it was pretty choppy, especially in the morning. A lot of volume came in. You could have used that level as, okay, this is where I'm going to enter the stock, and then you could have, traded your plan to the upside, or actually, because if you're in the stock, you could also use this in your plan. You could say, it's moving to the upside. You're hopefully taking profits, and when it comes back down to test this level, you can say you're either going to get out in potential that it's going to break that support and go to the downside, or you can add to your position and then continue to trade your plan. So let's just take the 5-minute candle at 11:30 yesterday. Again, we drew this line at 279.25. Again, for easy math, and that was a support, bounced off of it 5, 6, 7 times. At 11:30, you can see it perfectly wicked down to that. And if you kind of had that support drawn and you're trading it, perfect bounce off that, you buy that. It never came down, so you never stopped out of that trade. You got to take profits on the way. It would have been a good trade. So that's just an example of support. Again, that's just very quickly me throwing up QQQ and looking at yesterday. You can do this with just about any stock on any time frame. You can pull it up, and even on the day, or again, we'd like to look in the past. You can look and see what kind of levels you're dealing with. So, and then on the flip side, you can look at resistance. So if I go back, we'll just look at QQQ the same day. We can say that
CVNA.
Again, for easy math, we'll call it 280, 250. You can see in the morning around like 9:37 came up and touched that. Tried a couple times, through that move to break it, move to the downside, and then later in the day, let's call it 11:05, 11:06. You can see it kind of tried again, double top there around 282, 22ish. So you can basically say this level. Again, you can do this in real time, or we're looking at yesterday. You can say, that 282, that 282.25, you can use for easy math is on this day a resistance. So the stock has tried a few times to break through that. It can't really do that. It's trying. And you can say that this level is a resistance. So you can maybe start a short up here, knowing that this is a resistance. Sellers kind of come in up here, and it's struggling to break this. So you can maybe start a short up here and then trade your plan to the downside. Or if you get in, maybe down here at this resistance we talked about, then as it pushes up towards this price level, you can say, okay, this has been a resistance today. Maybe if you haven't yet, take some profit, or maybe this is kind of where you decide to exit the trade and see what happens. So you can use support and resistance to your advantage, again, whether you're looking at that day or in the past to set up a trade, especially swing trades. If you're going to try to swing something for a day or two or a week or two, definitely go back in your time frames and look at support and resistance levels and kind of what's going on. The market's unique in that a lot of stuff happens. Obviously, a lot of data comes out, a lot of news comes out, whether it's, here or overseas. There's a lot of, elements that can affect the stock, whether good or bad. So those things you have to take into account, and sometimes you're able to take advantage of them, but usually still support and resistance lines are going to hold true. I invited you to speak if you want to unmute and ask your question. Good, how are you?
UXIN.
PEN.
Yeah, so if I give me 1 second. Yeah, sorry, 1 second. My camera stopped working. Not sure why, but yeah, so if you're just on your chart and you right click, you can go to add a drawing. And then for support and resistance, I like to use price levels just because it's a clean, line. So if you right click, yep, yeah, go to, so you can use study, but I usually just quickly go to add a drawing, and then all the way top right for me anyway, it's the $ with a line. It's a price level. Just I use it because it's simple and it's quick and it's a clean line. So you click that and then you come down here, and let's say we're putting it at
SMMT.
279.25 on QQQ
CVNA.
yesterday. I just
LOVE.
click once and boom, I have a red line
KMPH.
there where that support
IMAB.
is. Yeah, and then if you need to, you can right click it and you can extend it to the left or right if you need to. Yeah, no problem, absolutely. Let me check the chat real quick. I think we're good there.
SMMT.
Not sure why my camera stopped. All right, and then lastly, I want to touch on, we're talking about support and resistance lines, and we're talking about price levels. You know,
SMMT
basically
halted.
an
SMMT
exact
will
price
resume
where
at
the
10:45
stock
and 32
is,
seconds AM.
you know, has support or resistance. But we can also use trend lines as support and resistance lines. So again, just to keep it consistent, we'll use QQQ on the 5-minute from yesterday. So, and if you're using
18HX.
drawings, I, you know, right click, add a drawing, and I use a trend line for this part. But let's draw on the 5-minute again. We can draw a line if we take the wick at 9:35 and then draw a trend line to the downside. You can perfectly connect 1, 2, 3, 4 points throughout the entire day. So on the 5-minute chart, there is a clear downtrend for the entire day yesterday on QQQ on the 5-minute. This is also support and resistance. This goes along the same way. So again, on the 5-minute chart, if you draw a trend line from the top of the wick at 9:35, you're going to connect with it at 11:05, 1:15, and 1:20. So 4 different
MDB.
times this perfectly wicked out to this level, and that is also a version of support and resistance. In this case, it would be resistance. Every time it touched this level perfectly, it taps this line and moves to the downside. So, and then you can do the same for, you know, resistance as well. You can draw, you know, if this was in an uptrend, it'd be opposite. We'd be drawing it from the bottom, which you can actually, if you want to take the wick, again, 5-minute chart, QQQ yesterday, take the wick at 10 o'clock, 5-minute chart, you can draw
OPAD.
uptrend, and you're perfectly going to connect with you're going to connect with 11:30, 12:30, 2:25, 4, 5, 6 different times you'll connect with this. So in this case, in a shorter, you know, period of time, it was in an uptrend until it wasn't. So you could have traded this every time it touched this level. You know, you could have bought and moved to the upside. You would have won every one of those trades. So trend lines and patterns, you know, formations, which we'll talk about in another lesson, are also forms of support and resistance. But just take away from this one that, you know, support and resistance are levels, whether it's an exact price or in a trend line that the stock either struggles to break through or struggles to, or find support and, you know, struggles to break down through. So support, it's coming up to it. I'm sorry, resistance is coming up to it and it's probably going to get rejected. Support, it's coming down to it and hopefully it's going to bounce. So just keep those in mind. We'll go into more depth on the actual drawings and patterns and formations in another video, but those are also forms of support and resistance that we'll talk about. Does anyone have any questions on support and resistance lines or levels?
SMMT may resume in less than a minute.
If you guys think of anything, feel free to DM me, you know, throughout the day. Is there any questions on anything else just in general in trading? Any questions you had, anything you saw? Again, feel free to raise your hand. You can type it in the chat or DM me.
SPWH.
We've done a lesson similar to this.
ADPT.
As you guys know, some of these might be repetitive for some of you guys, but again, we always have new people coming in, so we want to continue to teach this stuff. But I did go a little more in depth in the actual, you know, science behind what support and resistance is, why they exist, and what happens at those levels. So just keep those in mind and kind of try to implement those into your trading plan if you already don't, and just kind of keep keep your eye out. Do this, for practice. Go to a stock that you like. If there's a certain stock you like let's say you like to trade TQQ and SQQ, whether you're trading the market to the upside or the downside, go look at those charts on the 1 and 5 minute. Go back a day or two
EJH,
or a week or two
TWST,
and see if you can find certain levels. Draw those lines.
SMMT.
Again, if you use the price level the way I do and you draw the line, you can extend it to the right or the left and it'll extend to infinity. So if you draw a line on a chart from 2 weeks ago, you can extend it to infinity and you'll always see that on your 6-month chart as well. So you can, keep those levels in mind. And again, just go to these things that you like to trade or you like to look at a lot and just kind of study them a little bit and learn where support and resistance lines are. And then look at the price action and what happens to the
SMMT.
stock when it reaches those levels. And you'll learn a lot.
PSNY.
All right, if there's no other questions, I appreciate you guys showing up. Hopefully you learned a little
RNAZ.
something from this. Next week, I'm going to pick up the mindset lessons. So we'll be doing an in-depth mindset lesson next week, next Thursday. So definitely show up for that one. As always, this will be recorded and put on YouTube. If you have any questions or you want to go back and take notes or see my screen exactly where I drew those lines, anything like that, go check that out on YouTube. Again, you guys are doing a great job. Keep showing up. I appreciate you guys. And we will get after it again, 9:30 EST tomorrow morning. Have a good day, guys.